Good afternoon. My name's Andrew McKenzie and welcome to our webinar today on business problems solved with Microsoft Office SharePoint and Office 365. We've got some great topics today. Here with me is my colleague Peter Vincent.
Hi everyone.
We're going to be talking through a number of different tools you can use in the Microsoft SharePoint stack and Office 365 that relate to various different departments, being sales, marketing, HR, and we've really looked at providing you with some ideas around things that are quite simple and easy for you to deploy today. We're not looking to provide the most complex scenarios you can. We're looking for sort of low cost or quick time things that you can get up and running to make a difference. But before we get underway, just a little bit of housekeeping for you. As it's a webinar, we'll be looking forward to taking some questions at the end of the webinar. And in your webinar panel, you'll see a little questions area probably to the right of your screen where you can type those questions in. Please feel free to add them as we go today. We won't answer them on the fly. We'll save them and do them at the end, but at least when we finish our content, they're there and ready for us to tackle for you. And the other thing is we're going to be recording this session. So you'll get a link at the end to our YouTube channel where you can re-watch the session if you find it that useful for you, or share it with your colleagues and friends as well. So no need to sit there and take too many notes if you want to just catch that again. In terms of clarifying the agenda for you, I want to talk to you a little bit around the evolution of how work is changing and how people work differently. I'll kick off with that. Then I'm going to hand over to Pete, who's going to show us some cool stuff. Some stuff in SharePoint that maybe some of you are even doing today. But then we're going to show you some more exciting and funky stuff. So we expect there'll be people at a different point on their journey on this call. But at the end, I'm going to wrap up with defining the next steps in your path, how we can help you improve what you're doing today. So let's jump into it. To give us some context on the audience we have on the call, we've just got a quick poll that I would like to get a response to. I want to understand if we've got people who are using SharePoint today, if you may be using older versions of SharePoint or others. So we should have that quick poll coming up for you now. Are you using SharePoint 2007 or 2010, older versions, more current versions like 2013 or 16? Are you using SharePoint in Office 365? Are you using non-Microsoft tools like Google or Dropbox or Slack, or file shares, emails and others? I can see some results are starting to come through, which is nice. So just 10 more seconds and we'll close that one off. So that's an interesting audience that we're seeing here today. The majority of people here are already using SharePoint Online and Office 365. Wow, that's cool. Really exciting. There's some competitive stuff going on to what we're talking about today, some older on-premise versions. Wow, not a lot of people using file shares and email. I probably didn't expect that. Look at that. Things are moving along. So let's just talk about that really quickly then, because certain organisations will have different types of people and behaviours in their organisation. So the first one is that I did want to talk about was traditional platforms and processes. You know, these are your organisations where you're storing files still on file shares. We're also using things like email and sending around attachments rather than around links to different people. So just close off that poll there if we can. We'll go back to the slide deck. So one of the challenges with that traditional type of worker there is that when we're using those old school ways, we have some scenarios that are really difficult to work through for other people in the organisation. People have challenges where they can't find things, they can't find anything, or they're not sure which version is the right document because it's locked away in things like file shares that don't have version control. We might have other challenges where, you know, people are saving things where it suits them, there's not the right controls around things, and then people find things they shouldn't, or it will be in someone's inbox. Okay, so email is where knowledge goes to die. If you're still sharing things around via email in any way, rather than linking it back to a SharePoint library, you know, eventually that email box will be killed off, there's no knowledge retention, and no one else can search it. There's the other scenario here where people will say, hey, I'm going to ask Sue, she's been here the longest, right? So I don't know if you've experienced that in your organisation where we rely on individuals rather than a knowledge centre to work with. Where the next one is IT maybe are the only ones who can change things, it's manual effort and it's hard getting information out of anyone. So all these sort of frustrations have led to a different type of worker, and that different type of worker is one who says, hey, I have better systems at home, right? And so they know with the advent of things like Dropbox or even the use of something like Facebook and LinkedIn, they know there's better ways they can share. So what happens there in the organisation is we then get this person called the, what I like to call the rogue innovator, right? And they're not bad people. They're actually people who have great intentions. But what they do is they have these challenges where they think, look, I can't work like this. It's inefficient. I can't wait for our organisation to catch up. I'm going to show them how to step forward and get into the new age. But the problem with that is they don't really have a lot of thought for governance, security or knowledge retention in doing so. So that individual then ends up with a scenario where they're putting corporate content out into unsafe clouds, onto their own personal devices. There's this yin and yang where I'm trying to do something good, but I'm kind of doing something bad inadvertently in doing that. So what today's about, when we talk about these different departments and sales, HR and marketing and different tools that we can maybe use, we're really trying to talk about moving towards that modern team worker. The individual or the teams that connect, they share information that's central to the knowledge of everything they do. Governance is controlled and managed by the organisation. Knowledge is surfaced everywhere they go. They can use their own personal devices if they need, but it's still secured and managed by an organisation as well. So if we think about that, it's not just our documents we're talking about here. It's not just communications. It's tasks, it's workflows, it's everything we do. All right, so that's just a little bit of framework to help you think about some of the things we're going to be presenting today as you see them. But what do we, look, actually let's do another quick poll. We'll just bring that poll up for you. So what do you think your workplace is most common or mostly composed of today? Do you think it's mostly traditional workers in your workplace? Is it the rogue innovators? And look, I'm going to guess that we probably don't have organisations where it's mostly rogue innovators, so maybe they're a smattering in your organisation. Or do you think it's mostly modern team workers? Just take a second to fill those out. We've got that coming in. This stage it's looking like a reasonable balance. Okay. So let's just pull those results up there. They look like they've sort of settled there. All right, so we've come in that almost half of the people on the call today are saying that the organisation is mostly composed of traditional workers. Some people are saying rogue innovators, so there's obviously some things to address there in terms of security and governance, and we've got just under a third of modern team workers. Nice even spread in some sense there. So thanks everyone, appreciate that feedback. All right. Let's jump into the meat of today, talking about solving HR, sales and marketing business challenges. Look, we picked these different departments because we thought there's fairly common to most organisations, and they're the sorts of areas we see some really simple things can be done time and time again when we meet with organisations out there looking to find a better way to work. So I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Peter Vincent. So Pete, as I understand it, you've got some cool stuff to show us, some exciting stuff, but we're maybe going to start off some simple things. Maybe some of the people on the call are already using some SharePoint forms and lists, but they're things that you see challenges in a lot of organisations.
Yeah, that's right. So we'll start off simple. Let's start off with HR. So again, all the things that we're going to demonstrate today are really simple and they're easy to adopt and get up and running with your organisation. HR is a great place to start because it's an important function in your company, especially when it comes to new people starting. If you're a new starter, you probably don't appreciate all the coordination that's gone into the onboarding process. Some of you may recall your first day at a new job where things haven't gone to plan. There's no one there to greet you and nowhere to sit. You haven't got a laptop or anything set up. Now, compare that to an experience where the organization leaves you feeling as if the entire day is organized around your welcome. First impressions count, and they do have an impact on staff retention. So let's take a look at our first example. We're going to have a look at an onboarding form, and then a workflow that's going to manage those activities that we just talked about, rather than emails and spreadsheets to keep track of everything.
And so, Pete, this is something that we still see a fair bit of, where emails are sort of sent around to different people saying, hey, can you do this, can you do that?
That's right. It's difficult to keep track of where things are up to at any point in time without having everyone's inboxes visible on the page. So something I get asked a lot in workshops is, how can we make this process better? This question's almost always around forms and workflows. The tools are the parts that have shaped how people work today, but it's rarely optimal. And amongst all the manual steps, there's usually data re-entry from system to system, and this is where a lot of inconsistencies slip in. I don't know if anyone's finding that familiar, but this is a really common thing that people want to improve on. So for this example, I'm going to show you a really simple SharePoint form.
So Peter, it looks like you've just brought up what's recognisable to me as our basic intranet in a box type package. You're just going to use that as a framework for this demonstration?
That's right. This is our standard theme that we deploy to most people. I mean, change the colours and the iconography, but this is more or less where we start.
Just a quick rapid starter for an intranet.
That's right. It gives it a nice face. So we're logged in here as Megan. She's the recruiter in HR, and she's got someone starting in 2 weeks, and she needs to get the ball rolling to make sure that everything's set up for that person's first day. So as I mentioned before, the typical things might be scheduling an induction, getting a new laptop, having an email account set up, uploading payroll, all that type of thing. So let's have a look at the form I was talking about just a moment ago. I'm going to click here. While that loads in the background, here's one I filled out just a moment ago. This form captures details about the new starter, and it's going to kick off the onboarding process. In the past, Megan might have to stay on top of this, as we said, with emails and spreadsheets, but fortunately this form is the only thing that she has to fill out. By clicking save on this, a workflow is going to fire off in the background and kick off all of those tasks and assign each to a person responsible. That could be a person in finance, could be a person in marketing, or the employee's line manager. So let's take a look at what that workflow has done. Over here in the inductions task list, we can see the tasks that have just been generated from that workflow. They've been assigned to people, and you can see they've been backdated a week before the person starts, so we've got a bit of buffer time there. Lists like this give a great overview of where things are up to and what's left to do. This list can be filtered and reported on as needed, allowing the organisation to benchmark the ideal turnaround times for onboarding.
So Pete, and even in these tasks here, we can add additional information, right? Be it links to certain things they need to get done, or documents that also need to be formed, or other forms, whatever.
That's right, yeah.
The process.
What we're looking at here is just the title, but clicking into one of these, you can have as much detail in the task as you want.
And what happens if somebody's late on their task?
I'll get a tap on the shoulder, and if we come back to this list and have a look, the date will be highlighted in red, just to give you some visual feedback straight away that there's something overdue.
Okay, and that tap on the shoulder is a digital tap on the shoulder, right? They get alerted with an email or...
That's right.
Yeah.
So that list just got generated by the workflow. We've seen how simple that form was. The next thing to do is talk about documents. And with that, one of the first things that comes to mind is security. Often departments like HR are responsible for personal details. We want to make sure that these are kept safe at all times.
Really important.
HR is inherently full of personal data like salaries and bank details, next of kin, stuff like that. So how do we go about managing this data while it's in our organisation? Or what happens when it leaves? access to content within the organization is done with permissions. That means you can lock down an area of your intranet, so a select few have access to it, and it's invisible to everyone else.
And this is pretty much common. Everyone's already got that, right? It's just their permissions access. You know, whether it's even on folders or SharePoint, permissions is how most people manage things.
Yep. That's right. But even with that level of control, people still sometimes make mistakes. They might delete something in that secure area, or they might send an email outside the organization accidentally, whereas they meant to send to one of their colleagues. Then again, if we want to send information outside the organization to external parties, we have to rely on trust that they're not going to disseminate that content further. So in-place records management is how we can tackle the first problem, where people might delete something by accident. What happens here is the files are locked once they're put into the system, and that means the contents can't be changed. So if this is someone's contract that they've signed, their workplace contract, obviously we don't want someone coming in and fiddling with their numbers and changing salaries later on. So that's our first line of defense.
That means we don't have to worry about going back to things like backup or anything like that complicated. It's locked down, it's visible, they can still see it there, they just can't delete it or change it. It's a point-in-time capture, yeah?
That's right. So that can be automated by the system depending on the type of document that's being saved, or we can kick that off manually if it's something that the current user thinks is really important. The next one to talk about is data loss prevention, and this gives us a set of rules that we can apply to documents that keep sensitive information from leaving the company. So if I'm creating an email and attaching a file, I'll get a warning, or even the email might get blocked depending on what type of data is picked up inside that document, inside the attachment. So that's a really useful tool.
I'm sure there's been people on the call, I know I've done it in the past, that I've sent something to a Pete, but it was a Pete outside the organisation, and as I'm sending it, I'm like, oh no, you know, Alex, remember the wrong person.
It doesn't help that we've got 3 Petes in.
Yeah, so if we've got sensitive information in there, we want the system to prevent us from making accidental errors. Yeah.
And the last one to mention is information rights management. So this is what we can do. This is how we can control documents once they've left the company. So once I've sent it out, I can say that this Word document can only be viewed, it can't be printed. And if you try and attach it or forward it on as an email attachment, it'll prevent you from doing that. So we can actually control things after they've left. Okay, well, that's enough on security. Let's get back to our new startup. They've been onboarded and we've secured their personal details. Now we might want to determine if they've read the induction material. I know this is something I get asked a lot. So it's around policies and procedures. People ask, how can I make sure that people are actually reading these things?
I remember on my first day, they sat me down, and it's quite a number of years ago at PA for me, but they said, hey, Andrew, there's the policies and procedures, and it's really important you read them. And I must admit, I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to do that. But, you know, I was young, didn't realise how important those sort of things were. But obviously, there's key to the way an organisation operates, so you do need to understand this stuff.
Yeah, that's right. And in an attempt to make that a more digestible experience for our new starter, what we've got here is a PowerPoint slide, a slide deck. So this has been embedded in our SharePoint page here. And in interest of keeping this simple and cost-effective, I've used a free plugin called Office Mix. And this allows you to create interactive presentations. So this one has a quiz at the end. We'll just skip through some of these slides.
So this is a free PowerPoint plugin, Pete, Office Mix?
That's right. It helps us create quizzes like this one. We'll just wait for it to pop up. So let's see. Shoelaces don't apply to WHS, but fire exits do. Let's hit submit on that. Hey, we got it right. So not only can you set up quizzes, questions like this, you can actually track how many people are looking at the quiz and what their scores were.
So we got a free Microsoft Office plugin. We're using PowerPoint and we're embedding that right in the SharePoint intranet site.
That's right. You don't have to go looking for it. You can make it front and center on your...
And it's interactive.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So just have a quick look at what those stats look like. You can see here we've got a response rate of 47%, so we might want to bolster our WHS promotions within the company to bring that back up.
And we can even see the time people spend on the questions as well, huh?
Yeah, the number of visitors per slide and how much time on each slide. So, okay. Well, before we finish on the HR topic, I want to talk about something cool and new that Microsoft have brought out in Office 365. The idea of a personal assistant or digital assistant has been around for a little while now in our phones and those speakers at home. But Microsoft has made it really easy to get up and running with bots on your intranet. So putting ourselves back in the shoes of that new starter, we've done our induction, it's the next day at work, second day, and some details have slipped our memory. So rather than firing off emails to HR or our line manager, we can come to the FAQ bot and ask it some questions. So I'll just get started here and say hi. I want to know who is the head of finance. So just wait a moment and I'll just find the person.
Just letting everyone know, I'm not typing in these responses. This is the system giving the answers back to you, yeah?
If you could type that quickly, I'd be impressed. How about, where is the Sydney office? So at the moment, this bot is it's been hooked up to our people directory and it's pointing at our policies and procedures library. So questions I'm asking it, it's pulling out snippets of information that it finds that are relevant from our company's documents. I don't have to go and dig through them to find the second paragraph or the second page where that information is.
And this is quite funky because it's a little bit different to something like a standard search, right? We're not getting a big long list of answers back. We're actually getting a bit of targeted and grouped information in here rendered in a way that the bot's been configured to present these sort of information back. We've seen some graphical icons, some phone number and fax information being all added and captured in, to make it easier for the user. Is a bot's a lot more than search, Pete?
Yeah, they are. You can get bots to kick off business processes and other actions, much in the same way as we saw the workflows do a moment ago. So you could type into a chatbot to log a timesheet or request leave or book a meeting room. Really, it's up to you how complicated you make these things.
Okay, so it's a bit like a Siri or a Microsoft Cortana or something like that for your workplace in terms of being able to action things.
Yeah, that's it.
That's neat.
Okay, so just to summarize, we've made the onboarding process more efficient. We've secured some personal information. We've tested and tracked the user's learning progress, and we've given users an interactive way of finding information on our intranet rather than relying on email. All right, let's move on to marketing. Marketing's got to be one of the most interesting departments to work with. A lot of colourful individuals. There's lots of rich media content. There's processes, jobs, events, and then there's the whole communications piece, which is a really key part of having an intranet. And that's where this platform really shines. There are so many things that we could show you relating to SharePoint and marketing, but we're going to focus on two key things: job requests using a mobile-friendly form and corporate communication. So marketing receive all sorts of job requests. Some examples might be advertising campaigns, direct email, print media, landing pages, seminars, things like that. For this example, we're going to collect that data for a conference using a mobile app. We're going to create a space for that conference to be worked on, and then we're going to inform the business about the upcoming event. Some of you may or may not know that organising conferences takes a lot of work. You've got to organise an agenda, book speakers and a venue, get pamphlets created, organise catering, lots of stuff. Wouldn't it be nice if we had one area to do all of this, keep all our content? So let's start from the beginning. Someone needs to log a job. Often this is done by sales guys out on the road using their mobiles, and rather than use a browser-based form like we just saw for HR, let's have a look at a more touch-friendly solution using Power Apps.
So this is This is something that I know a lot about, Pete, you know, even thinking about this webinar today, right? You know, it's something that we have to go to our marketing team and say, hey, you know, we've got to organise it, who are we going to invite, what's the content, get the landing pages, there's all these different tasks we've got to manage. So I get exactly where you're coming from.
All right, well, this is a power app. So this is what you'd expect from a mobile app. There's no pinching or zooming. This is it just takes up the whole screen. You can have one of these embedded on your SharePoint pages as well. You don't have to access things like these apps through mobiles. So I can see a list of existing job requests. I can drill into one and see the information about it. If I wanted to log a new request, I could do that. I'd have to pick what type of request that I want. So with a conference, I'll be asked for this information here, a title, an event date, the speakers. But depending on, you know, if I picked a white paper, I'd be asked a different set of questions.
So this is just a smarter way at the moment for us to capture the data than compared to the first one that we just did a real basic one in the SharePoint.
That's right. Just building on the last example. So, like you just mentioned, this is just capturing data. We're doing it in a more mobile-friendly way, but it's data at the end of the day, and that data gets stored in jobs request list. So I've flipped back over to the marketing site. This is just a simple marketing site. You can make quite elaborate team sites in SharePoint, but for this example, we've just got a simple functional one here. Our recent job requests up the top. I can come in here and approve a job request straight on this page without having to dig through other screens and dialogues. Once a job's approved, the workflow is going to go and set up a site for that job. So I've already approved this one here. I can see I've got a link to the team site that's been set up for this conference. I'll pop over to the conference team site. We're met with a task list. Now this looks pretty familiar.
It looks like the first one you showed us, really.
That's right. So wherever people go in the intranet, we want to keep the experience the same, consistent. So we'll be using team sites a lot, and you know, people can come in here and tick off these tasks. These happen to be tasks that are all about setting up a conference, going to book venues and things. And they've been plotted up here in the Gantt chart, so you can see where we're up to today and what's left to do. On the left-hand side, we've got documents, a place to store those, a calendar for organising what's happening on what day, notes. So this is using OneNote, great place to take notes on the fly. But down the bottom here, we've got a news feed. I can't stress enough how useful these are for encouraging collaboration in your organisation.
I spotted one on the homepage as well, Pete.
Yeah, the homepage is where we've got Yammer hooked up to the homepage. So again, that's the next step up from an inbuilt news feed that we're seeing here. This is an out-of-the-box one, but Yammer is you know, the next step in that social engagement with your stuff.
And the importance of that is, again, we're not losing stuff in email that's searchable. People can have those threaded conversations, broadcast to the whole organisation, or we can target them into specific groups. I know it's one of the biggest things that, you know, of impact that we've had in a lot of projects in recent times.
Yeah, and it gives people a sense of ownership. They've got their own voice to contribute, and more importantly, come up with answers and have recognition, and you know that they were the ones to help out. Okay, well, remember the home page where we've got this slider in the middle here? The last part of this section is informing the rest of the business that the event is coming up. So I'm going to pop over to an article that I wrote just before. By clicking save on this article, it'll be published at the home page, letting everyone know of the upcoming event that we've just approved. These articles will stay on the home page until they expire. So this new slider will take care of itself, cleaning out old articles.
So we've got a couple of different ways to communicate here. One that's presenting a bit more like an advertorial, nice image there that people can see, freshen up the look. But then we've got the newsfeed, the Yammer newsfeed underneath there, where we've got the threaded conversations. We can see Isaiah a little bit further up there where you were. Pete's mentioned Megan, I think I saw. You know, so he's called her out. She still gets an email saying, hey, there's a post on the newsfeed here, so it draws her into it. But then the whole organisation can be aware of the conversation and contribute.
Yeah, that's right. So to wrap up, what did we cover? We've seen a cool new way of capturing data in a mobile-friendly way. We've seen some simple functional SharePoint sites that give us a single source of truth for content, capturing knowledge, and visibility of tasks. And we've kept the company in the loop by publishing that news story to the homepage.
So I think where you're going next is a bit of a departure from the traditional stuff. I know we had some people on the call that they said, hey, we're already using SharePoint, maybe Office 365. I'm really keen, and we don't have a poll around this one, but I'm keen to see if anyone's using this new platform that you're about to cover next.
Yeah, this is what I've been looking forward to demonstrating. All right, so when it comes to sales, I know it's dangerous to generalize. I've got a sales guy sitting next to me right now, but they're a driven bunch, helping their clients succeed in meeting their targets and uncovering new opportunities in a competitive and fast-paced market. But many don't find that procedures and administration come naturally to them. The typical salesperson, driven by these requirements, doesn't always think of sharing their knowledge about their activities. This is why organizations have CRM systems in place, because these CRM systems provide structure around all the unstructured thoughts and activities that the sales guys do. The structure makes it easy for everyone else in the business to keep track of what they've been involved with. But CRM isn't designed for documents, and it's definitely not designed for collaboration. So where do these belong? In this example, we're going to look at collaborating on a proposal. Proposals are won in part with a quick turnaround and accurate, compelling tenders and proposals. However, these don't write themselves. The sales staff are responsible for coordinating who's involved, as these documents are almost always a group effort. People from across the business, they come together to share knowledge, contribute content, QA responses, cost efforts and products, and review legals. Sales could use a SharePoint site, just like we saw in the marketing example a moment ago. But to spice things up, let's look at a more modern way to work.
And this is something that the team here at PA have been using recently, Pete. So it's a good example. Let's get into it.
Okay, so Microsoft's come out with this neat tool for working in groups, whether that group happens to be a temporary, like a tender or a proposal, like we're going to look at now, or if it's more long-term, just like a business department, something that never really ends. This tool stands on the shoulders of SharePoint, and it pulls together all the tools in Office 365 that you use quite regularly. It pulls it all into one simple interface. This tool is called Teams. Okay, so we can see on the left-hand side the different teams that I'm part of. With a click, I can see who's a member of this particular team, and I can see what the team is working on. These are referred to as channels. So the XT1000 is the one I'm interested in. I'm going to hit favorite, so it pops up here on the left for me. The first thing I see when I enter a channel is the chat. Now, the chat's really important. As we said before, it's an always searchable medium. It lasts for the lifetime of this channel. So if someone's brought on board to help out with this, they can scroll back through and get up to speed quite easily.
I can see some neat things in here. We can see that it looks like Ben's online. He's got a green tick, so I know that he's there and can engage in conversation. And I can see down the bottom we've got some neat little things down here as well that I can launch straight into maybe a Skype video straight from within the Teams app. So I'm not having to go to these other interfaces that I know I've got at my disposal. It's all sort of built in here.
Yeah. So they've put all these tools at your fingertips in this one interface. So just to flick over the tabs here, we've got Tiles, Tasks, and OneNote.
Files.
Sorry, Files. They're skipping to Tasks too quickly. So I can open up a file inline, and this is kind of what we expect from Microsoft now. It just should pop up.
And this is just a SharePoint document library in the background, Pete, that's pulling that, housing those files.
That's right. It's built on the shoulders of SharePoint. I can start chats about these files inline. You'll see them pop up next to the document, and you'll also see those chats pop up in the conversation thread here. So if I'd mentioned something about that document, or said, hey, Linda, can you come and QA page number 3, that would pop up here as a discussion thread, as something to talk about.
One of the challenges that I find with responding to RFPs, particularly large ones, we've got so many different people we've got to coordinate, and it's hard to know or make sure that everyone activates their contributions in a timely manner. How do we manage something like that in here?
Well, Planner is another tool in the Office 365 toolbox, and that's what we're using here with tasks. You can see that the team set up different buckets. We've got text specs, logos and images, legal. I can move around these tasks just by dragging and dropping. I can have a look at a task and see some details about it. Here's a checklist for this particular task. I can see it's flagged as urgent.
And we can check off one of those task lists if we need to.
Yeah. So I can see nothing here is complete as of yet, but they're all in progress. Up the top with the tabs, you can add in more tabs to other areas. Those could be individual files like an Excel or a Word document, or Planner, as we've seen, is another system we could hook in, or you could use one of the more integrated pieces in Office 365 like Power BI and put in a dashboard there to keep track of things.
And, some people said they were using other cloud tools today, and we can see some things down there like Zendesk or even Trello or others that we can add that don't necessarily have to be Microsoft tools. There's some nice integration there.
Yeah, that's right. Right, so what I like about Teams is it gives you this concise list of what you're working on and the ability to add value immediately. You don't have to worry about copies and versions of files, and it's easy to keep track of what everyone's working on. Okay, so that's it from me. I hope you guys have enjoyed these examples. What you use is going to be up to you, but it's about making sure that you achieve more without investing months and months into changing what you do. Take advantage of what Microsoft gives you and look for the quick wins and have fun being a modern team worker.
Thanks, Pete. That's great. So nice examples there, different things, some easy things, and today again was today about showing, hey, how can you very quickly deploy these things we're showing you, not large, expensive projects. So I just want to touch on or reinforce that a little bit here with a couple of customer stories that were exactly that. The first one is one of Australia's leading non-profit organisations, and a couple of these examples, there's a lot of work that we've done in there with some fun stuff with SharePoint and Office 365, but a couple of things that relate to what we showed you today. One was around government grant submission. So it wasn't so much an RFP response, but the same sort of concept. And with this organisation, they would need approximately 10 to 12 people to contribute to the research grants that they were doing. What was really interesting to observe is that they were using old school methods of emailing around the grant submission documents. But of course, these attachments were creating multiple new versions every time they sent something around to a different individual who would then fill it out. And believe it or not, they had an individual whose role in the organisation was to consolidate all these responses, all these different documents that were created into a single document prior to submission. And look, the process was just unruly. It didn't really provide a good quality output because nobody had visibility of what each other was doing along the way. And that impacted their performance, which ultimately impacted funding. So, really simple one. They decided to go with the SharePoint site, very much like what Pete showed you today, for collaborating, co-authoring documents, bringing their activities together, and that individual was actually then redeployed in the organisation for much more value-added research QA activities rather than just the document consolidation. So the other one was these guys had no way of tracking marketing requests. So identical to what Pete sort of went through today, setting up some job requests, setting up status checkers, some workflows around the activities, and what that allowed management to do is get some visibility over things and say, hey, we need to provide additional resourcing, be it outsourced or additional headcount, to keep up with demand. So that demand management wasn't visible before. It was all done in emails, and of course that led to frustration within the staff and, again, poor results because it couldn't be managed. So nothing rocket science, just real life examples of what we showed today. Next one here is a really unique organisation, investment and wealth organisation here in Australia. They actually manage about $150 billion worth of funding. So those of you who are smart might be able to figure out the type of organisation this is. It's a little bit different, but they had no connection with their investment staff. So these are staff who are travelling around the world looking at different assets and looking at these investments, and again their only communication was hidden inside email prior to the project. So the other problem with that is their communication with clients was hidden in email. So management had no visibility, but other staff had no visibility of client engagement. So if something happened, that person left or was sick or etc., you know, you can understand the risks that came in, the confusion for customers. So what these guys have achieved through deploying SharePoint Server 2016, so this is an on-premise deployment, there were reasons that they made that decision, but they have better management decisions now because most of their communication is driven through news feeds. It's visible, and so they talk about it in their words, crowdsourced news and communications, really like the term. And also better staff decision making around customer interactions, right? So customer sat is higher now because everyone knows what was agreed to and what needs to be done. The last one is moving forward to that change of interface experience, really leveraging the new stuff in Office 365. An oil and gas customer of ours, great stuff, a lot of problems there, legacy platforms, you know, they really, process efficiency is critical to what they do. And we sat down, they didn't know how to attack the problems they had in the business, so we provided them a one-day showcase, a full day on the Office 365 platform. And you know, what we have now in place is a platform where they're using Microsoft Teams, they've got Power Apps embedded, things like Power BI charts, which we haven't touched on today, into their Teams environment. They've got this new modern interface that's relevant to people no matter what type of device and location they're coming in from. And they've got real-time collaboration and that's aiding them with their decisions and their outputs, and overall it's helped them reduce operational costs, which is a big pressure for an organisation like this. So 3 different examples, different platforms, you know, SharePoint versus Microsoft Teams versus SharePoint on-premise versus the cloud, and just some touch points around some of the stuff we've shown today. How we get involved with you can be anywhere on your journey. We do tend to help a lot of organisations end-to-end in making evaluations around what platform suits them and helping with business cases and defining use cases. But we also help organisations with things like governance planning and change management workshops. So it doesn't really matter where you are on the journey. You can see the different numbers that we've got on these icons here. You know, we're able to jump in and assist a customer any way, right through to even post-project support activities. So I wanted to wrap up. We've got a few questions, but just before we jump into those, we're getting very close to time here on our 45-minute webinar. But to help you move forward from where you're at today, if you've seen something there you think, hey, we could work better, whether it's in those departments we've been discussing or anywhere else in your organisation, we're providing you with a free transformation assessment. So moving from where you are today to a better way to work. That might be to do with teamwork, it might be to do with performance, or it might be to do with risk, right, or something else. But we're offering a free transformation assessment. At the end of today, you will get a survey on the webinar. There'll be an option for you there to select that. Okay, so in the interest of time, I'm going to jump straight into questions. And we've got some questions that have come through here. The first one is, how do you set up any of these? Well, that's a great question. That's really going to come down to understanding which ones you want to use. The nice thing is if you use a cloud platform, it's kind of already set up, and an organisation like ourselves could help you understand what are the best next steps in defining your use cases, as I said, and the right tools to give you outcomes, right? It's not about the technology here, it's really about the impact and the business outcomes you're going to get. Next one here, would be approval process for news article prior to being visible to i.e. governance. Right, okay, I understand the question. Pete, I think the question there is, can we have an approval process before content is actually published?
Of course, of course. This is a common question, especially around the homepage of someone's intranet. So we can do this for news stories, be it just list items like we've seen there, and we can also do it for documents as well. So you can have a closed ring of approvers that they're gatekeepers. The items have to pass through them before they're released to the rest of the company.
Okay, terrific, excellent. We've got one more question here that we will just get to, and any others that we haven't got to will certainly respond via email. But one more there, I think, Pete, you've...
All right, I've got SharePoint already. Do I need to move to SharePoint Online to get Power Apps and bots?
Interesting question. The answer is sort of yes and a sort of no. Do you need SharePoint to use Power Apps and bots? No. No, you don't. But do you need an Office 365 subscription, which, you know, potentially SharePoint Online could be part of? Yes, you would, and it's an app, and that's how you get access to these tools and you begin working with them. But you can use them in isolation, or you can use them integrated with your environments. So look, I think that's all we've got time for today, everyone. We really do appreciate your attendance. We hope you took something out of today's webinar, and we really do hope to see you again in the future. Thank you. We'll catch you then.